welcome to Shine Me a Light podcasts. In this series, the last 27 years, in each episode we go through the last 27 years in the life of one Sydney Girls High School class of 95 student, and this episode is Polina Ryuntyu.
I have not thought about anything.
Okay, that doesn't matter. As we go.
I've deliberately not thought about it.
No, it works better that way.
Cool.
It works better that way. Because, see, I'll just everything I say now, we'll have to edit out anyway. So, in 95, did you do HSC with everyone else?
Yes, I did.
You were one of that crew.
I think I did.
because I think I did. Well, that's because we've got the two groups now, the ones who weren't there and the ones who were there. So
Great.
And then what happened after you left school? It's a memory test.
That was a long time ago. I was really lucky because I got into vet school, which was my dream since I was 9, and I didn't think I'd get in. So basically, and you only found out, when did we find out our results? Was it like mid-January?
It was back then, you had to wait.
And that's crazy because literally 3 weeks later you're at uni.
Yeah.
And
you didn't know if you were going or not.
I didn't know anyone, and so what was your question? What happened?
Yeah. So you went to uni and so you wanted to be a vet and you got into vet science.
Yes, and that's 5 years of uni. And I met some amazing like-minded people, and it was just like the first day of school when I sat next to Denise Yacker in 7G and said, "Can I sit next to you?" And then we became best friends. It was just like that. We got on this bus very early in vet school that took us to the farm out at Camden where we did all of our rural placement. And I sat next to 2 or 3 people who were my new best friends, for 5 years. So
that vet school, that's where I was living, out in that area in high school and travelling.
Yeah. So it is pretty far, but and it's farmland
right
essentially.
Yeah.
So there's sheep, there's cattle.
Yeah.
Beautiful country. Yeah.
It's great. You actually got to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. Like I do feel grateful. What a cliched word, but that I was lucky that I actually enjoyed what I selected to study, because remember we had those little books, the UAC or whatever it is, that showed you one paragraph about what veterinary science was, and I think I read that 100 times because I didn't have the means to research that any further, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I did year 10 placement. I remember we had to do our careers placement, work experience. So I kind of knew, but I didn't, culturally, being a vet in my family, it's very unusual, so.
And that's when something actually occurs to me, because I remember we met, and we were just talking about it, we met in kindy.
Yeah.
And I remember your mother was working at the school.
That's right.
And you just arrived. Were you born overseas?
Yeah, so we came, I was born in Russia, and in 1980 we came to Australia as migrants, and we really didn't have much. We lived in a hostel actually at Randwick Barracks, and then they put us into housing, and Mum worked as a cleaner, and then she was a very good piano teacher and still is, and so she started teaching piano to the children of the houses she was cleaning, and some of those kids went to Kambala, and she was told, just go get a job at Kambala, so she did, and that's where Alexis and I first met in kindergarten at Kambala, and I was only there till year 3, but. How long were you there?
I can't remember, but I left year 2. I was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Went to International Grammar.
Yes, yeah. So Alexis and I have just a couple of memories from that time, and I was certainly in that kindergarten class too.
Okay, so I remembered something around that, and then I remembered you living in a block of flats.
Yeah.
And and was when your brother was born, I think.
Yeah, my brother was born, and we must have been really good friends, because Mum asked whether I could stay with you while she was in labour. I mean, it probably was a last minute decision, let's face it. But I remember your parents, and we went to your place, and I reckon I stayed the night. And that was a really big deal when you're in year 2 or year 3, like to have a sleepover.
Yeah.
So thank you for looking after me during that period.
Okay, so you've done vet science now, and so that is actually amazing because I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it, and a lot of people just don't know what they wanted to do. So you knew what you wanted to do.
And that's more normal, I think. It's more normal to not really know what you want.
Common anyway.
I was just lucky. I got away with it, that I just landed on my feet. It was very hard. I didn't do brilliantly, but who cares? I ended up graduating, and I decided I wanted to do mixed practice, which is not just cats and dogs, it's also horses and cattle and sheep and pigs and whatever else.
Yeah.
And so I moved to the country, and I absolutely loved it, but being on call every second night is it's not sustainable. And back then you are on call and you get called all the time, and you go out, and it can be quite scary as well. Your car can get bogged, or you just don't know where you're going down these country roads. But my boss was amazing. I worked in Wingham, which is a little town near Taree, and he's still a mentor of mine, and I just loved that year. But then I decided to go to the UK and travel because I always wanted to be a backpacker.
Yeah.
So, and I'd met my husband. We weren't married, like we were together for like 11 years before we got married. But we went to the UK for 4 years together. And that was just life-changing as well because again, in the UK, I was really lucky. We got work very, very easily, and the work was outside London. It came with accommodation and a car. So basically you could stay in a flat above the clinic, and it was very poor conditions. But who cares as a backpacker? And you've got a roof over your head, and then, you go travel to Egypt, or Italy, or, and you do all those things that's really what I wanted to do. So I love that experience. I think Tash and Jeremy did that a bit earlier, so they really inspired me to make sure I made that happen.
Yeah, she was talking about that.
Yeah, so
I think basically you could have had a high school reunion in the UK, it seems.
I think
most people were there.
Yeah, so I loved that.
And so 11 years doing that and 5 years of uni, that's 16 years. That's taking you into your 30s.
Well, no, we were 4 years in the UK.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
4 years in the UK. Yeah,
and
then and then it was a great experience. But I think we wanted to come home eventually because that's our parents are pretty important to us, you know, to be at home and stuff like that. Yeah.
And when you got back here, what happened?
I don't know. Let me think. I got a great job in Maroubra, and I stayed there for 13 years, and that was excellent. I didn't mean to stay for 13 years, but I just ended up getting married and having kids, and vet is really hard when you're working full time because there's a lot of we have a lot of mental health problems within our profession, and it's very difficult to explain it. I don't know if we want to take the time, but basically if you look at the type of person that vet school selects for, it's usually one of those like type A personalities. People are perfectionists. They're very motivated, very driven, very hard on themselves. And then they go through vet school, which is great. You're in this community and you're all supporting each other. But all of these personality traits don't really go that easily when you're actually working and you're looking after people's pets, and you want to have 100% good outcomes, but it's not the reality. The reality is that things go wrong. Pets have diseases that you can't A, diagnose, B, treat. Yeah. You're dealing with euthanasia as well, and which I guess it was very daunting at the beginning to euthanize an animal, and it's always, even to today, like I always feel very emotional dealing with people's pets.
So much, much, and he had to be euthanized.
Yeah.
Cancer incurable. And I remember the vet putting the catheter in, and he licked her hand.
Oh,
that was his last gesture. Do you know what I mean? And she just started crying, and she said, "I've never met a dog with less aggression in him than this dog."
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful thing. Like, I thanked her the way she did it, and she held him, and that was, he took his last breath, and there was a beauty in the way she treated the dog I loved.
It is, and I think I've developed that for myself. I feel like it's, and again, I'm sorry if I offend anyone and what I say. I'm not maybe explaining myself clearly, but it is I don't want to say a gift, but it is a way of looking at it is that we are lucky that we don't have to let our pets suffer.
Yeah.
And we do have options of making the right choices, and these are very difficult decisions for the owner, and that's what I think as a vet or any kind of medical professional, you take a lot of that on board, nurses, everyone, because you want to support the humans through their journey, but also be the advocate for the animal, for what's best for them.
Feel like they're children. So
in this day and age,
the way that vet showed empathy and compassion towards my dog was the greatest gift to me. I've had to euthanize another dog at another time where the vet just put the injection in and left the room, and I had to hold my dog's head off the floor, and I couldn't put my dog's head on the floor, and I didn't know what to do. And so those skills of empathy and compassion and care and all that come into play, and they make the best medical professionals. So that's why the UMAT now has that middle section, the people skills section. It's not all just about science anymore.
Yeah. So I think going into vet school, you don't often want to actually be dealing with the human side. You want to just be there for the animals, and then you quickly realise, oh my God, I have to deal with the crazy owners as well. And in the nicest possible way. But now I'm working in a different practice where they're very affluent people, and these pets and these pandemic pets, who these COVID puppies, they are part of the family. They are sleeping in people's beds. They are everything to people, and I totally understand that. But then you're also, you want to really understand what's going on, why the owner has brought the pet. And there's a lot of pressure that people put on themselves, and therefore we have huge mental health problems. And also a lot of vets these days, the students are coming up with this enormous debt of $120,000, $150,000, and their salaries they are not able to pay this off, at all. And
my next debt is in that.
So I think
haven't paid $1 yet.
Part-time suits me. It's perfect. I can just work, 3 or 4 days a week plus weekends. We always work weekends, and it's a great balance, and it's a great way to cope with the stress of work and the consequences of that.
And when did you have your first child?
I think it was 2011. Olivia's, she's just turned 11. I think I was like 32 or something.
28 plus 6.
Whatever.
But you didn't have children in your 20s? Because I had a child in my 20s.
You did.
Boy, that was, in hindsight, wish I had.
Life throws you curveballs.
That's right.
Yeah.
But 30, so how did you feel about working and parenting as a balance at that time?
You know what it's like. You always think, I'll be back at work in 6 months or whatever.
Back in 5 days.
Yeah, well.
Because when you work for yourself, a doctor's certificate doesn't do you much good.
No. So, it was, it is what it is. And I think we had 5 pregnant people at once at work, and we only had a staff of 7, so that's a lot of pregnant people. But just look, we have this great family support. So Chris's parents and my mum are 100% available for us, and there's no way I could have headed back to work. Chris was a PhD student at that time, and but work, I really find I benefit so much from having that balance where I've got my own identity, and I don't judge anyone who does anything different. I'm just saying for myself,
you have to
that works.
And finding that takes time. You have to do a lot of things that don't suit you to find what does.
And often you burn out before you realise, actually that's too much. I need to not do that. What have I done that's triggered that I'm not coping with this situation?
And that's a common theme in a lot of people I've been speaking to, is that, you know, they're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
They're taking on too much, and they're having to learn over and over again to self-care has to come first.
It does.
In order to do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, so do you have more than one child?
I've got a second, Alex. He's just turned 9, so he came 2 years later.
Alex, great name.
Thanks, Alexis. Can't go wrong.
So, and how are they going?
They're great. They're thriving. I feel like we're in this golden period where the kids are at this age where they just get along with whatever we want to do. They're into it, whether we want to go for a bushwalk or we want to go snorkeling. They're not as opinionated as I feel that they will be in the next couple of years. Oh, yeah. I am getting a bit of pushback from Miss 11. But the hard thing is, like, you just see yourself in your child, and my mother is like, there you go. Back at you. In the nicest way. It's like, yeah, you were like that, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's the problem.
I know. I so relate to that.
Yeah.
So do relate
I
to
know.
that. And the teenage years, I'm telling you, girls,
I'm not ready.
You're 7, boys, you're 9. What painful.
Yeah. So the contrast today was, you know, the 9-year-old left the car going, I love you, Mum, have a great day. And the 11-year-old left the car going, have a bad day, Mum. And I was like, great. Anyway.
I have learned, one of my greatest lessons has been not to take that personally. I love that I don't today.
I know.
It's got nothing
but it's so hard.
I used to, my son who's 19 used to hurt my feelings so much.
Yeah.
Because it would mean to me I'm a bad parent, or that I'm doing something wrong if he is horrible to me, you know. And I just laugh today because I just it's got nothing to do with me.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's an attempt at manipulation, or it's a projection, or it's totally about, you know, taking it out of me because I'm here and I'm not going anywhere.
It's a safe space. Yeah. I get it all in theory, but it's so hard.
Yeah, the hard head connection, yeah, for sure.
I'm not good at that. Anyway.
I probably have had it down pat for a few months.
Okay.
So, you know, now that I've got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right. Who from school do you still have contact with?
Well, I'm really lucky. I mean, to be honest, I'm really lucky because I still feel very close to my Sydney girls people.
Yeah.
I've got, you know, Len in Sydney, and I've got Tash who comes in and out from Newcastle. Yeah. Denise I'm very close with, but she's in Melbourne, and I accept that she's going to stay in Melbourne forever.
Yes.
But her parents are here, which is great because now she's started to come back to visit them. And then I've got Karen in Melbourne, and she comes back all the time, Karen, because her parents are just around the corner, and she'll even move into my house with her whole family and dog, you know, if we're not here and she needs somewhere to stay. So I love being able to see the kids grow up. Sumana is in Singapore with Asri, and she's always trying to get me to go over there. And pre-pandemic, certainly, we would go and deliberately try and catch up with her. Yeah. But look, and then beyond that group, you know, you bump into people, you know, and it's amazing because I wasn't friends with certain people at all. And then, you know, we're a bit older now and our paths intersect, and it's just lovely.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to see you and, you know, and all of these, I feel like very special. And if I've forgotten anyone, I'm sure I have forgotten to mention people. Yeah. So they're like the main people I catch up with. But then like Laura's child will play netball at a very high level where my child plays netball, and we'll bump into each other. And it's so magical seeing people who you grew up with.
It's almost like, because I had this at the beginning of this beautiful sort of idea that we're all sort of on this journey, you know, of life, and we've all gone in these different directions, you know, and but in the same way we're all sort of going, well, we are all going towards the same destination. I won't mention what that is.
Oh man, I think you know what we can talk about? The turning 40 and the semi-midlife crisis. Which I don't think I really had one until like more recently, where I'm like, what am I doing? Is this really the life that I wanted? And I think I am really trying to make an effort to be in the moment with the kids,
Yes.
which is really hard for me because I'm a task-focused person.
Yeah.
Whereas the husband's like this fun, like doesn't get anything done. Like he works, but do you not? Yeah. So I'm like the contrast of that. So yeah, I'm really conscious that, you know, we are lucky. You know, we get to travel, which is nice. It is very fortunate. Yeah. And I think also as far as professionally, just looking at like, where am I going? I'm in a great practice. I'm in working great hours. It's hard. Like I'm challenged, which I need to be challenged. I can't just work and be bored.
Yeah.
I hate that. And I sort of stopped doing continuing education through the pandemic. The pandemic was terrible. It was just...
How did it affect your family?
Look, it was really stressful because as a vet, we will run off our feet. Yeah. But the threat of the virus was very much in our faces, because I was seeing maybe 20, 30, 40 humans a day, face to face. And at work, we had to wear a lot of PPE. We were scared of the virus at the time. We thought...
early 2020.
We were scared of giving the virus. So Chris and I continued to work. We were scared of giving the virus to our family. Kids, not so much, because they were tough, but it's more grandparents. Yeah. So we completely isolated ourselves from all friends and family because we continued to work face-to-face with the public. Yeah. So for that whole period of time, it was really hard because we were homeschooling. So one of us would work, and then the other person would stay home with the kids, and we were lucky we could do that. We didn't have to work from home, and I think that was great. Yeah. But that was really hard at the time. Chris actually moved the kids to the Blue Mountains for 6 months because we ended up getting an investment. We had a business deal that fell through, and we ended up getting an investment property, and he just took them there, and I just commuted to and from work up from the Blue Mountains, which was amazing to be up there and have that as a LGA rather than being in where other people were. But so it was great. So we could do bushwalks and things, but we were again very isolated during that period of time. The kids weren't seeing anyone at all.
How did your kids go with that?
They thrived. I think they did. They were pretty good. On my homeschooling days, we were done by 10:30. Like I just couldn't do it. Chris loved homeschooling, which is very unique. It's like the only person I know. So yeah, look, we just, you just do what you have to do. So I think it was...
When you've questioned, is your life what you want it to be? What's your answer then?
I think ultimately, yes. I think what we need to do, and I'm just talking about myself, even though I said we, is just not look at the grass is greener. Is definitely not the kind of person I want to be. I have friends who are constantly looking at what other people have and wanting that, and I'm very much not into that. That is
comparing my insides to someone else's outsides.
Yeah, and the FOMO, and people have it tough and they don't show it.
Yeah,
they don't show it, and what you see is just a small fraction of what is actually going on in that person's life. Yeah. So that's really important to us. And but I loved Sydney Girls because it was incredibly the demographic was so varied. There were people from everywhere, all strokes of life, and different cultures, different religions, different upbringing. And I think as teenagers, we were quite aware of each other's differences. Yeah. And yet I think that's what made the experience really unique. Yeah, and I want that same for my kids, but I feel like we're in this society where we live in particular, it's not particularly varied or diverse. No. And their upbringing, my goal is just to not have spoiled brats. And it's hard. Yeah. It's hard. And, going through this midlife crisis, there's, again, I'm not going to be able to explain this very clearly, but, there's apparently there's certain things that have been researched that make people happy, and your money is one thing. You have to have a certain amount of money to be happy, but it doesn't actually have to be excessive. Yeah. The second thing is, you have to be fulfilled, but you also have to be able to give to other people. Yeah. So I think one of the things I started to do very recently is, and I've always wanted to, is go and volunteer in something called Pets in the Park. It's like a charity last Sunday of the month for dogs and cats, and they come to a church in Darlinghurst, and basically we provide all of the veterinary care for free. So if the dog needs surgery, we book that in. If the dog has a wound, and it's just homeless people. And it brings so much just to be able to give something like we do. Like I always give my time, I mentor students, and that's easy for me. It doesn't really feel like doing anything. It's just normal. But this also is another level of me trying to say, look, what can I do to make myself, more feel like I'm giving something to the community, because I'm at that age where I've got time and so it's just 4 or 5 hours every it's easy. And I took my daughter along last time because I thought, look, she needs to just see that this is life. Life is hard for some people, and unless we actually show the kids, they're going to have quite a skewed perspective. If the only places she goes is the eastern suburbs, God forbid, what's going to happen? So does that sort of make sense?
It was amazing catching up with Polina. We went to kindergarten together with 2 other class of 95 City Girls High School students, and hopefully I can record their stories as well. Thanks, Polina.